Dive just 2 miles beneath the ocean's surface, and the eels you once admired for gliding gracefully or shocking their prey with electric bursts. Forget them. Down here, they turn into pure nightmare fuel. Their bodies stretch to monstrous lengths, sometimes 5 times what you'd expect. Jaws either balloon into terrifying proportions or vanish entirely, leaving them looking nothing like the eels you know. Some can unhinge their mouths to gulp down fish whole. Others blind themselves on purpose, sharpening senses like touch and vibration instead. And some, they've even resorted to cannibalism. At these depths, almost anything goes. But why abandon those sleek, powerful forms for these terrifying mutations? And what actually twists eels into these grotesque shapes the deeper they swim? If you watched our squid video, you know the deep ocean can warp creatures in bizarre ways. But eels? They take it to a whole new level. To understand this, let's start where eels still look normal. Take the snowflake eel, for instance. As its name suggests, it's basically the opposite of frightening. These eels inhabit the epipelagic zone, the relatively shallow waters near the surface. Because they don't live in crushing depths, they retain a calm, almost elegant appearance, more like a living piece of coral than a predator. Their colors help them vanish among rocks, sand, and coral, allowing them to sneak up on prey unnoticed. Oh, and quick clarification before anyone asks, the electric eel isn't a true eel at all. It's actually a type of knife fish that only resembles one. Centuries ago, a few misinformed scientists labeled them eels, and the name just stuck. Electric eels live in freshwater rivers, not the epipelagic ocean zone, but they can be dangerous, though they aren't creepy in the same sense as the deep-sea terrors we're about to meet. Sure, electric eels and their cousins can pack a punch, but they're still far from terrifying. The real transformation starts when you venture deeper into the twilight zone, that mysterious layer where sunlight barely reaches. Here, you meet the conger eel, or a bigger, darker, and more imposing cousin of the shallow water eels. Its vibrant colors are gone, replaced by an inky black that helps it vanish in the dim waters. Its eyes? Massive. They've grown to catch every scrap of fading light. And the body isn't just long, it's surprisingly muscular. To put it in perspective, a snowflake eel weighs just 1 or 2 pounds, while an adult conger eel can tip the scales at a whopping 130 pounds. These are no joke, they're basically real-life sea serpents. But despite looking like something straight out of Subnautica, they're usually calm around humans, only showing aggression if provoked. So, why do conger eels look like this? It all comes down to evolution in the twilight zone. There's just enough light for shadows, but not enough for color to matter. Losing pigmentation and turning jet black helps them blend into the faint gloom. Meanwhile, their oversized, sensitive eyes are perfect for spotting even the tiniest movement in near darkness. But what about eels that venture even deeper, where light disappears completely? That's when things get truly bizarre. Welcome to the Midnight Zone, a world of absolute darkness where eels start losing all resemblance to what we normally recognize. Here, the sawtooth eel lurks, a 6-foot-long shadow of its shallow water cousins. Its jaw is lined with needle-like teeth that jut out even when its mouth is shut, forcing it into a permanent snarl. Its body is jet black, thin as paper, and built for drifting in a place where meals are few and far between. In this survival of the fittest environment, it'll eat almost anything, including other eels. Then there's the snipe eel, which looks like someone stretched the sawtooth eel into an even stranger form. Its mouth can barely close, its body incredibly elongated and narrow. It's creepy enough to make your skin crawl, yet harmless to humans. Most snipe eels are small and have no interest in us. So, why do these eels look so warped? Their jaws are specialized tools, designed to snatch drifting prey with precision, almost like shooting targets in midwater. They focus on shrimp and other tiny crustaceans, using backward-facing teeth to secure their meal as it passes by. At the very bottom of the Midnight Zone, things get truly alien. Enter Neosaema earthtasma, an eel so rare that scientists only refer to it by its formal name. First spotted in 2018, a blink of an eye in marine biology, only a handful of specimens have ever been recorded. And it's unlike anything else. This eel looks almost unfinished, with organs visible through translucent skin and no visible eyes at all. Any eyes that Neosaema earthtasma still has are buried under its skin and are completely vestigial, meaning they no longer function and exist only as evolutionary leftovers from ancestors that once could see. You might be thinking, how does this bright orange creature even survive without sight? Honestly, scientists aren't completely sure because encounters are so rare. But lacking vision isn't really a drawback down here. In the pitch-black deep, sunlight doesn't reach, bioluminescent glimmers are scarce, and no creature cares what you look like. Instead, Neosaema earthtasma likely depends on touch and vibration, using specialized nerves along its body to detect movement and pressure shifts in the water. Going deeper than the midnight zone, we reach the abyssopelagic zone, the extreme edge where eels are pushed to their limits. Among them, none is more iconic or more unsettling than the gulper eel. At first glance, it seems almost unreal. Its mouth is enormous, so when it opens, it looks like the entire head is about to invert. The jaws can expand several times the size of the eel's body, creating a massive pouch capable of swallowing prey nearly as large as itself. When it drifts through the water, it's hard to even tell what's happening. And no, those tiny dots you see aren't nostrils. They're its eyes. Unlike most predators, the gulper eel doesn't chase its meals. It floats silently, waiting, luring small fish and crustaceans with a glowing bioluminescent tip at the end of its long, whip-like tail, a trick borrowed from the anglerfish. When a curious creature ventures close, the eel opens its mouth like a living net, gulping everything in one swift motion. And when it isn't feeding, the mouth folds back into a surprisingly delicate, almost fragile head, making the creature look even creepier. Its body is paper-thin and jet black, perfectly designed to vanish into the endless darkness. Its eyes are tiny pinpricks, and the tail glows faintly, like a solitary lantern floating in an endless black void. The gulper eel is easily one of the most alien-looking creatures on our planet, a perfect reminder that the deeper you descend, the stranger life becomes. But here's a question: if its body is so flat and stretched, where does it even keep its brain? That's where it gets truly unsettling. The gulper eel's brain is minuscule, buried deep behind those massive jaws, taking up almost no space at all. Most of the head is nothing but flexible skin, muscle, and empty cavity, allowing the mouth to expand into that horrifying, balloon-like gape. The actual brain is tiny, roughly the size of a pea, tucked just above the throat. This is exactly why gulper eels have inspired deep-sea horror games like Subnautica and Dredge. Game designers and modders often model monsters after them because, honestly, they already look like something out of a nightmare. But are they dangerous to humans in real life? Realistically? Not at all. For starters, you'd almost never encounter one. They live 2,000 to 3,000 meters below the surface and rarely venture upward. Secondly, they aren't aggressive hunters like sharks. They don't chase or tear apart prey. They simply drift, waiting, and gulp whatever floats into their mouths. Their massive jaws may look intimidating, but they're not built to bite hard. They're traps for small drifting creatures. Unless you're under a foot long, you're safe. Even if a curious gulper tried to swallow something human-sized, you wouldn't get bitten, you'd just be vacuumed up in one gulp. Venture even deeper than the gulper eel, and you'll find a close relative, the deep-sea swallower, also known as Sacopharynx ampullaceus, an even more extreme and bizarre version of the gulper. And somehow, it gets even more disturbing than the gulper eel. Meet the deep-sea swallower, a creature that's essentially nothing more than a mouth attached to a stomach. Its jaw can open wider than its own body, and its stomach is so elastic that it can consume prey larger than itself. When it swallows something massive, the eel's entire body balloons outward, stretching into a grotesque shape that barely looks like a living animal anymore. After that, it doesn't swim, hunt, or move much at all. It simply drifts, motionless, sometimes for days, slowly digesting its meal in total darkness. So what separates this thing from the gulper eel? While they may look similar at first glance, the deep-sea swallower is far more specialized around its stomach. Its entire biology is built to expand, distort, and endure enormous meals, making it look even more unnatural than its gulper relative. And like most creatures from these depths, we barely understand it. These eels are so rare and so difficult to observe that meaningful footage is incredibly limited. As much as I'd love to show you one swallowing a massive fish, the reality is that encounters like that are almost non-existent. The deep sea keeps its secrets well. So, does it get deeper? And does it get creepier? Surprisingly, yes. While gulper eels and deep-sea swallowers inhabit the upper parts of the abyssal zone, there's one eel that lives even lower, near the very bottom of the abyss. It's also the only eel believed to potentially reach into the hadal zone. This is the one-jaw eel. And just like the name suggests, it has only one jaw. No upper jaw at all. Which raises an obvious question: why would evolution allow something like this to exist? The leading theory is that the eel uses its single lower jaw like a hook, impaling drifting prey and swallowing it whole, since chewing is clearly not an option. Its eyes have shrunk down to tiny, non-functional specks, and it doesn't have usable fins. Whatever fin structures remain have fused into the tail, helping it hover rather than swim. These eels are so unbelievably rare that we know less about them than almost any other eel on Earth, even less than gulper eels. They're not just hard to find. They're barely known at all. What we do know is this: these eels are born already missing multiple body parts, and somehow they still haven't gone extinct. If it weren't for a handful of deep-sea trawling accidents, no one, not even the creatures living beside them, would have any idea what one-jaw eels look like. And here's the strangest part. Even though scientists have technically caught a few of these eels, we still barely know what they look like alive. That's because deep-sea animals aren't built to be pulled to the surface. You can't drag a creature evolved for the abyss into normal pressure and expect it to survive, or even stay intact. These animals evolved under crushing forces, hundreds of times greater than the pressure we experience at sea level. Their bodies reflect that reality. Instead of rigid bones or protective shells, most deep-sea eels have soft, gelatinous tissue and internal cavities designed to function only under extreme pressure. Down there, that design works perfectly. But the moment they're hauled upward, everything breaks. The pressure vanishes, internal balance collapses, and organs begin to fail. Eyes bulge or cave in, assuming the eel even had working eyes to begin with. Stomachs inflate uncontrollably, gases expand violently, and many specimens never even make it to the surface intact. They rupture mid-ascent. And when researchers do retrieve them, what comes up isn't some living nightmare trying to escape. It's often just a torn, leaking mass of black tissue, with teeth. Even in the rare cases where a body reaches the surface in one piece, decompression has usually destroyed any useful detail. Color fades, the body swells, and the structure collapses so completely that it's nearly impossible to reconstruct what the animal actually looked like in its natural environment. So when we say we don't know much about deep-sea eels, we mean that literally. Our only real options are to either retrieve a specimen that gets destroyed on the way up, or capture a few fleeting seconds of blurry footage from deep-sea ROVs before the animal disappears into the darkness forever. Studying them is like trying to research aliens, except every time you find one, it falls apart before you're even allowed to examine it. That's why deep-sea eels simply can't be brought to the surface. End of story. But that raises a bigger question: if eels can survive this deep, why can't they go even farther, into the deepest parts of the hadal zone? At a certain depth, the pressure becomes overwhelming, not just for their bodies, but for the way they're designed to function. Eels depend on flexibility. Their soft skeletons and pliable tissue allow them to twist, maneuver, and hunt. But beyond roughly 8,000 to 9,000 meters, that flexibility turns into a weakness. The pressure compresses every remaining air pocket, every muscle fiber, until even basic movement becomes nearly impossible. This is likely why the one-jaw eel looks the way it does. It isn't built to dominate its environment. It isn't even built to thrive. It's built to barely exist. At these depths, evolution stops being about improvement. It becomes about survival in its most stripped-down form. The one-jaw eel is essentially a minimalist version of life: no functional eyes, no real fins, no upper jaw, and almost no pigmentation. Every feature that isn't absolutely necessary has been erased by darkness and pressure. What exists in the deepest parts of the Hadal Zone aren't fast swimmers or active hunters. They're creatures that barely move at all, more drifting than swimming. Life forms that exist not to conquer, but simply to endure. And maybe that's why the one-jaw eel feels so unsettling. It's not just strange or alien-looking. It's a form of life that neither we nor perhaps anything else were ever really meant to see. Thanks for watching.